Right, to our top story. France, which has recently upheld a ban on fracking, has been accused by oil companies of sacrificing access to a major source of energy. Let's now hopefully talk more on the pros and cons of shale drilling with geopolitical commentator and former oil field executive Ian R. Crane, who's joining us live. Mr. Crane, it's very good to have you with us. Now, you used to work in the oil industry yourself. What is it that makes fracking worse than the other extraction techniques of oil and gas?
Okay, well, what we're talking about here is the extraction of shale gas primarily from unconventional geology. And this is a very different technology, a very different technique from the usual process of extracting from conventional reservoirs. The gas has to be extracted from what's known as tight geology. That's a very good description because it means that the geology is very compact, it's very difficult to drill through, and there's very low porosity and permeability in that geology. So consequently, the geology has to be opened, porosity and permeability has to be created, and this is done through high pressure, high volume hydraulic fracturing with literally millions of gallons of water, and primarily this is fresh water, mixed with a very toxic recipe of chemicals. So what we're talking about here is a number of issues. We're talking about the phenomenal usage of fresh water, which once the chemicals are added is lost to the system. And we're also talking about the fact that this, fluid...
Is it more basically sort of forced drilling in an unnatural way? And these companies who are doing this, do they actually have government behind them? I mean, how much leeway do the government have behind all of this? Do they know what's going on? Are they with the companies? And why are they not standing up with them?
Of course,
against them.
Of course, the government are supporting it. In fact, it's a government stroke industry-driven agenda. And of course, what we're seeing all around the world is people reacting against this, because the reality is that everywhere in the world where this process has been put into use, it has resulted in the contamination of the water, of soil, and of the air. And when the governments and the industry are promoting their shale gas agenda, they conveniently leave out the evidence that demonstrates that this is an abomination.
But we're talking about job creations here as well. I mean, with these companies, there is that aspect of things. Shouldn't the public put job creations above everything else? I mean, seeing that we are in tough economic times right now, or what do you think?
Well, I think the thing that should be put above everything else is protection of the water supply, because if we don't have access to fresh water, then basically we're talking about the potential end of all life. So as for the jobs and as for the gas, I mean, to some extent, you know, at what price? The end of an ecology or the end of life on Earth as we know it? In fact, in recent days, actually, in the Financial Times just 2 days ago, a report was published that stated categorically that the government estimates in terms of the numbers of jobs that this industry would create are grossly exaggerated. And you know, the likelihood is that maybe over the space of 20 years, some 10 or 15,000 jobs may be created, which is actually minute.
Right. Geopolitical commentator there, Ian R. Crane, joining us live on RT to speak more about fracking and that worldwide expected activist day that will start off today around the world. Thank you for joining us on RT.